have you heard about this Mr. Beast guy?
By all accounts, Mr. Beast does not seem like a bad guy at all.
I'd like to talk to you all today about hindsight.
But in the segment where I'm talking about Mr. Beast, I'm pretty sure that I explicitly say that I think he's a good person trying to do good things and make the world a better place.
Let me just say, ahead of anything else, f*** Sunny V2. Speaks facts, gets called a madman, refuses to apologize, wins. They hated him because he told the truth. Bro had a prophecy. Nobody is hated more than he who speaks the truth. Plato. Nobody needs to give any props to Sunny V2. The only prop he deserves is of the Alec Baldwin kind. Sunny V2 makes e-celebrity slop gossip content comprised entirely of other people's opinions, and I would be absolutely shocked if half his channel isn't AI generated. Because that would mean only half of it is AI generated. About a year and a half ago, Sunny V2 made a video in which he set out to present as much evidence as he could to make the case that MrBeast employee Ava Tyson was a potential liability to the company. He did a bad job.
And if we've learned anything from Hollywood in recent years, it's that adding over-the-top LGBT characters for the sake of relatability rarely works as intended, and is often nothing more than a distraction from the premise of the movie or video.
Sunny V2 presented a case so unconvincing that even with legions of people already clamoring for any excuse to go after Ava Tyson, this was the bandwagon Sunny V2 was clearly trying to profit from. The video was overwhelmingly mocked and almost destroyed his reputation at the time. In fact, at no point does Sunny V2 report on any of the very publicly available suspect material that actually wound up making Ava a liability. The tweets were right there. The Shadman poster was physically right there in a MrBeast video. Next to MrBeast. And again, for how controversial Ava Tyson already was, you would think she was this giant outspoken public figure and not one of those people who stand in the corner of a MrBeast video and contribute basically nothing. This was a failed cancellation on creative mode. So what does the video focus on? Speculation if Ava Tyson being a transgender person makes her forced diversity. Speculation if Ava Tyson being a transgender person has damaged her relationship with her family.
You ripped apart your family and took a father figure away from your son just so you could paint your nails and act zesty. Pathetic. Chris went from lighting campfires and raising a family with his beautiful wife to now trying to be a wife with his man buns and long nails. There goes a father figure the kid won't ever be able to look up to.
Speculation if Ava Tyson making jokes about anime waifus on a live stream may have permanently scarred MrBeast.
Oh my god, Jimmy, look, they drew you. Jimmy, they drew you so well. It looks just like you.
Nail painting.
Chris began to display increasingly feminine traits, making tweets such as, "I finally got my nails done at a nail tech."
We apologize. You called it out and we didn't believe it. We just called you transphobic. We just hated on you. And clearly you knew about the whole thing.
Adding over-the-top LGBT characters for the sake of relatability.
Sunny V2 accurately predicted that a bunch of dipshits would muddy the waters by making this entire topic about transgender people and not any actual harm that was done by being one of those dipshits. Content with lazy culture war pandering, in reality he did nothing but make it far harder for victims to speak up about their issues without being lumped in with whatever this is.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't get it. It's the nails.
Do not give this man his dub, or any of the cottage industry of YouTubers who spent years pretending to dig up everything they could on Ava Tyson before the Dogpack or Prism videos. They failed at their jobs, completely and utterly, and they deserve nothing. The bit about MrBeast aged like milk. That MrBeast segment aged like milk, lol. The MrBeast part aged like milk. So just a quick note. I've always kind of known I was going to talk about MrBeast again on this channel. See, I made a mistake. Back in 2023, I mentioned MrBeast, both the guy Jimmy Donaldson and the MrBeast brand itself, in a couple of different contexts. I did a Squid Game video where I discussed accusations of him as someone who uses money to excuse treating people in quite exploitative, even harmful ways.
Even Jimmy wants to come here for a minute. That's how depressing this place is now. Can't say I blame him, honestly. This sucks, man.
Mostly as a contrast to the Squid Game show, which was very directly about that kind of behavior. Especially ironic given that MrBeast unironically recreative Squid Game.
You gotta get a better spot for the next red leg, right? You're fine.
It's people putting themselves through the same calculations of physical and emotional labor that anyone does when they decide to do a job. And more we're seeing how much that will be pushed for the sake of a fun spectacle. It's just gambling, because as much as you might win and have your life change forever, maybe you'll just spend 9 hours freezing in a warehouse and then be rushed to hospital with nothing to show for it.
I actually thought that segment aged very well for reasons we'll get into later, but nobody wants to talk about that. Nobody except Mike Milky Way. Thank you, Mike Milky Way. But you one go. There was also the Willy Wonka video.
Mr. Beast does not seem like a bad guy at all.
Now, in fairness, I did say this immediately beforehand.
Please discount this segment if he is cancelled.
The context there was pretty different for reasons you kind of need to watch the video to get. You should watch it. It's when I used to film in an attic. But the idea at the time was that highly wealthy and influential people can naturally be put on a kind of pedestal. A cult of personality develops around them, and especially with celebrities, and especially when it comes to charity, they can become quite idealized. Some would say worshipped, which in the case of Mr. Beast is weirdly not that far off.
It's a Mr. Beast statue. We're gonna gift it to Big Jimmy. We waited 2 days, we camped outside, and we slept in our car, and then now we're over here, waiting. Yeah. 2 days.
I think when people do have these big spheres of influence, people can get kind of caught up in their feelings when it comes to criticisms of the industries that they're a part of. Yeah, on an individual level, charity is good. It's a nice thing to do. Usually it's also an indication of a thing in society that is not being fixed.
Like, the point I was making was that regardless of whether Jimmy Mr. Beast is a personally good, charitable person, the expectation that big, charismatic individuals are going to come along and fix the world's problems is both naive and probably a bad thing for a society to rely on in the first place.
I know it's weird that a YouTuber has to do all this stuff, but someone's got to do it, and if no one else is, we're going to do it. As you can tell, it really does change the lives of the communities where we build.
That's always going to be the real problem, and not Mr. Beast or any other individual person who'd ultimately just function as a product of that environment. He is just a guy, and both the people who idolize and criticize him can often forget that and treat him with a greater level of significance than he probably deserves. This man was already planning a presidential campaign, and if there's one thing we should never have to deal with in a president, it's celebrity entertainers overpromising to a naive cult fandom Orange Man bad. And I did mean charismatic in a general sense. I don't think Mr. Beast is a very charismatic host. But who am I to talk?
To be clear, I didn't take his shoes. I don't know why he's not wearing shoes.
Yeah, that did tie into a video about Willy Wonka. Welcome to my terrible channel. So I wasn't specifically trying to attack Mr. Beast in the video or minimize good things that came out of the Mr. Beast brand. It wasn't like I specifically went out of my way to dig up every reason to dislike him. I think it's good that more people have clean water, personally.
People now hate Mr. Beast for building wells in Africa. This is probably the most predictable drama ever.
Funded the construction of 100 wells across 5 countries in Africa to provide clean drinking water to 500,000 people. Good thing, right? No.
While you guys were up here virtue signaling on Twitter talking about, this is how it should be done, somebody actually just went over there and said, I'm gonna do it, and they did it.
Mr. Beast could be doing far more nefarious things with the millions of dollars that he has to invest in these videos, and instead he is deciding to give people drinkable water. It just astounds me that anybody could be upset about this.
Targeted at one of the only wealthy people in general who are constantly helping the community and people around him. But he's one of the only genuine wealthy people that are constantly doing everything they can to help other people.
As is the case with anything on the internet, some people just find a way to be mad.
And the people on Twitter who exist to bitch.
This is sad, man. Just making a career off of this.
Here's one where he claimed to build 100 wells, but in multiple shots you see the same wells listed as different wells. Well 29 and 67 were the same. He also said he built a bunch of wells in Kenya, but then showed wells that were clearly built in Zimbabwe.
And when a bunch of defensive Mr. Beast fans decided I was trying to go after him anyway, I clarified this even more in a follow-up video.
So Mr. Beast is my best friend, and that's why he's going to be sending me $100,000.
And I guess, me, because even though everyone was getting torn apart for even the slightest criticism of Mr. Beast at the time,
Mr. Beast does everything that Twitter wants other rich people to do, and it's still not good enough for them.
Telling people who are actually out in the world making a positive difference you're the problem. Yeah, quick question, who the fuck are you?
I guess I just should have been a huge dick to him with no particular evidence to do so my video wouldn't age like milk. I suppose we should remain skeptical of rich capitalists engaging in charity as a PR spectacle. Why didn't anyone warn us?
I know there's a meme that there's no good billionaires and stuff, but I'm starting to understand what it actually takes to get uber rich. Somewhere down the line, it seems something sinister happens where you might potentially have to sacrifice morals for more money.
In the end, a lot of accusations have emerged about Mr. Beast and his shows and giveaways and his charity and his internal company operations. I started writing this video like 2 months ago, and at a certain point I stopped because more shit just kept coming out. Fully an hour before I started filming this video, it turns out Mr. Beast is getting sued.
I feel like the closest comp is obviously your videos, but then also Squid Game, the reality show. Do you feel that way or no?
No, it's completely different. It's in a whole different... It's like that, but I mean, on steroids, times a billion.
Rumors of issues with Mr. Beast's Amazon Prime show Beast Games have expanded into a full-on class action lawsuit, with participants claiming they were subject to chronic mistreatment, sexual harassment, and more. Keep this in mind for later. Contestant complaints range from limited access to tampons and pads, having insulin and other vital medications withheld from them, several people being hospitalized, and maybe most cruelly, being forced to consume liquid death and feastables as sustenance due to sponsorship commitments. They state that despite Jimmy boasting of unconstrained resources from Amazon, bare minimum legal working conditions were not met and fair wages were not provided. This was due to a mischaracterization of their roles to get around California employment law. I quote, "Defendants employed superior bargaining power to coerce the contestants to sign unconscionable contracts with illegal terms and illusory obligations." Also, allegedly, a lot of contestants had their underwear taken when they entered, which have not been returned.
I didn't take his shoe.
And this was all after the Lunchables thing. Okay, when you put them side by side, the Lunchables thing doesn't seem as important, but look, man, Prime has lead in it. Now, on the one hand, naive to criticize a business for selling stuff for the sake of making money, as if that doesn't describe most businesses. Sure. I'm willing to go that far in criticizing Dan and inviting the wrath of 15 million late Gen Z Minecraft kids.
It's about time this kid respected his elders.
Remember I made a joke about creative mode? Sorry about the movie. But also, just incredible to see Jimmy, who has addressed almost none of the things I'm talking about in this video, emerge out of the ether to defend his chocolate bar energy drink nacho combo box to encourage healthier eating habits for children. In collaboration with Logan Paul.
You're a gangster! This is what we're reduced to.
This man is the devil.
But I think if you're getting mad about nachos, that's a you problem. Oh, and the pizza. It's literally called the pizza.
But same thing. Like,
they're basically the same fucking thing. They look different, but they basically taste the exact same. And guess what? They probably both use food coloring in these. It's basically the fucking same. I'm sorry. It's not crazy, but which one edges out? I think it depends on the drink.
Did you know if you buy a Mr. Beast product from his website, you waive the right to a class action lawsuit? That's convenient. This is solely information I've learned today. So as this man immolates before our eyes, exposed as exactly the kind of deceptive businessman who would succeed in the way he did, now I think is the time to reflect on what happened and what we can take away from it. Like the fact that I'm better at predicting things than Sunny V2. This video is me basically hitting my limit on what I feel I can address in one script. And if there is another new development that completely changes all of this, congratulations, I have another video that you can comment and let me know, aged like milk. Let's start from the beginning.
And he did say that he enjoys the Catch Me Outside girl and thinks she's funny, so let's just...
So that just shows what...
Let's be real, you want to
I mean, it's
probably not.
Enjoying, and
she's like 14 years old. She probably has AIDS already.
Cringe in hindsight, but those were the times.
There have always been valid reasons to be skeptical of Mr. Beast as a person and a brand. He left that poor train to die. There have been Reddit posts from contestants of his games claiming they were mistreated.
From the start, it was a horrible experience. We were made to wait hours in 95-degree weather until we were able to get on the set to film this physically and emotionally grueling video. The actual floor of the circle was made of rough turf, and some of the girls had gotten allergic reactions to it. If you sat down with your hands or legs, it would leave a mark and make you start bleeding or getting rashes.
The certain parts of his videos were staged. Videos calling out fake giveaways as far back as 2017.
This entire giveaway was a complete fake. He went out, bought the gift cards, and recorded himself opening them to then use them for himself, and then later used the video footage for the live stream. Pretty much all of those watching were deceived, and most of them probably would have wasted their time to sit through this and get used gift card codes from Mr. Beast. He then went and benefited off it, as I'm guessing
random extra prizes who turn out to be employees.
Even though you got out first, I still have a prize for you. Just wait here. Congratulations, you just won a brand new car for being first out. Who would have thought being a loser would pay off?
Here's an influencer with, at the time, almost 1 million subscribers accidentally admitting they were chosen by Mr. Beast to take part in his chocolate factory contest.
Talk to Jimmy, Bella. What do you got to say to
Jimmy, thank you for picking us.
No, he didn't. It was random.
I know, but thank you.
Oh, he won the chocolate factory? I would not be the first person to point out the casually manipulative ways Mr. Beast marketed his channel and products. And I'm not just talking about trying to use children as an unpaid labor source.
Like Hershey's, for example, there's 10 ingredients, super processed. Our Fusel's bars are 5 ingredients, and just all the ingredients are way higher quality. And it's infinitely better than the other options out there.
Is Mr. Beast chocolate really combating bad health in the youth?
People who never would have bought chocolate in Walmart are walking to the chocolate aisle specifically to buy Fusil.
You're creating a new market.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm bringing new customers to the aisle, which is such a net positive and one of the biggest KPIs these buyers would want, that it's just like dumb not to have me there. It's like, literally incompetence not to put our bar there because I'm bringing new people to the aisle.
Is it really the world's best chocolate? When I went to buy mine at the Walmart, a little girl told me not to get the dark chocolate one because it made her throw up. She didn't actually say that, but she did advise against it, and I got the Crunch Bar, which it was alright. It tasted like a Crunch Bar, but like triple the price. Because it's ethical. It's even listed on the Slave-Free Chocolate website. Okay, well, it's not on there, but it is certified by the Rainforest Alliance. Yes, the same Rainforest Alliance that works with Nestle and Hershey's and is currently being sued for the use of child labor. Chocolate's hard, man. A chair YouTuber named Honestly also noticed all mention of Mr. Beast products being slave and child labor free were removed from his site last year. Probably nothing to worry about. I don't think Mr. Beast was really losing as much money as he said he was during those live streams. I think he probably made a lot of money. Oh look, and I did think the Shadman connection was weird when I was first told about it, but I always thought the connections people had to Shadman were weird. As a kid, I thought it was weird that a whole generation of Newgrounds artists I enjoyed thought the infamous artist was cool. I thought it was weird when, years after he drew someone's actual 8-year-old daughter, Onlyplays put up an episode collaborating with Shadman and then defended Shadman's character when confronted about it. This isn't me trying to cancel Chris O'Neill or Zach Hadel or anyone else on the now infamous Shadman friends list. I think a lot of these people have now firmly distanced themselves from him, and at this point my standards are so low that just not platforming him anymore is probably enough. Funny thing, people pull up this Twitter argument a lot. That's actually my partner Britt arguing there. And as you can see, they were ratioed and they were harassed about it for a very long time. This is the point. The history that I really hope people don't try to revise, both in the case of Shadman and Mr. Beast. It wasn't that people didn't call these things out, it's that calling these things out for a long while was really a complete waste of time. If you try to call out connections to Shadman, you are a moral scold who's scared of drawings. And if you try to call out Mr. Beast engaging in deceptive marketing or possible rumors of people being unhappy on his sets, you are a killjoy communist who hates to see a man succeed and help the people around him.
Her name is Siloam.
Why do you hate charity? Why do you hate being good?
You said something recently that it was up what he did to all those blind people.
Yeah, I hate curing the blind.
Yeah, same. That pissed me off, that video.
You know what else is frustrating? Dying of thirst.
Mr. Beast.
And the people who have reached this point of being charitable are not the same people who spend their life on Twitter calling out Mr. Beast for being a bad person. Thankfully, almost...
It's not a real offer, but again, Mr. Beast's audience is primarily children who may have authorities in their life that actually use sweet treats or video game detentions as forms of reinforcement.
Oh, a kid was sad because they thought they were getting a special bonus in their t-shirt.
When he realized that there was no $100, he was visibly disappointed. He said nothing other than, I guess he meant everyone except me.
A person knowingly spent money they didn't have to buy 5 Mr. Beast shirts and they didn't even get a prize, using a false sense of urgency to market a product. My children shouldn't eat 8 Mr. Beast bars a day? They don't get a cookie for subscribing? And just imagine me saying a year ago that Mr. Beast is bad because of old misogynistic videos, or because when he does his giveaways, there's the chance of a racial bias because certain names are less likely to be read out.
You know, humans have biases. Imagine Jimmy tells the guy off camera, hey, pick a name right now, and he sees 2 names, one is easy to pronounce, one is not.
None of these are invalid points, especially in the video's full context, but that's not context you would have been given the space to explain a year ago. You'd be clipped and shipped. Deranged, butthurt hater. But then, something changed. The reality of cancellation is, it's not usually about people doing bad things, it's about vibes. Evidently, cancellation itself is kind of a vibe. These videos are still getting hundreds of millions of views.
We couldn't reach the ground. This meant that if we let go now, we could get swept away by the strong current directly beneath us.
Point being, the court of public opinion is often arbitrary and emotional in a way that can make you quite cynical about the whole thing. So the first news broke about Ava Tyson, and I had questions. The fact is, a lot of people had bad vibes about longtime Mr. Beast employee Ava Chris Tyson long before they had legitimate reasons to go after her, and a lot of that did come from her very public transition. And I know that because of all the videos that criticized her exclusively because of her transition.
We have to be very careful and guard our children from the invasion of literally demonic confusion. This is nothing short but demonic, and I'm gonna play to you a video in just a moment.
Chris began to display increasingly feminine traits, making tweets such as, I finally got my nails done.
Even the Prism 42 video that many news sites and bigger channels later cited on this was muddled up in really bizarre arguments about how they didn't think it was appropriate for a bisexual to interact with children.
The fact that you are also attracted to men as well as women, you should not be talking to young boys that are in middle school. The fact that you're also bisexual, that is disgusting, that is gross, that should not be happening. Keep in mind, you're bisexual, okay?
Please say less.
Like I said, I don't have anything against you, Jimmy. I don't have anything against you other than like the fact that, you know, you seem to be okay with having someone that says they're the opposite gender near kids. We're gonna talk about that. So again, I have no idea if this guy...
If you've been on the internet long enough, you will know there's a common tactic you can use to jump from I dislike this person to disliking this person is an important cause for everyone, and that's calling someone a p***.
Chris, go away. Briz up kids another day.
Look, someone's doing it right now in the comments by referencing my Cuties take from 4 years ago. Incidentally, I agreed with criticism of the film's production even at the time and think child acting should be much more heavily regulated, if not maybe banned. The fact that I also agree with the intended message of the film doesn't conflict with that. Nice try, Sargon.
I think it's, yeah, it depends on the child really, doesn't it?
It's generally accepted by most people that are the worst thing you can be, and if you are one, you should die. And in the real world, there's at least the suggestion that it's an incredibly heavy accusation to throw at someone that can have devastating consequences. But on the internet, there's basically no consequence for it, so it's pretty much the same as a cheat code. You type it in, everyone hates the person. It's great. And gay and transgender people in particular have had this tactic used against them a lot. Careless and grifting influencers can easily inspire anti-LGBT hatred and full-on legislation based on fabricated online moral panics. It's incidentally great seeing UK politicians try to jump on this bandwagon when this is what traditional children's entertainment looks like in the UK. Hey, I wonder why the Republican politician that was so concerned about this isn't in office anymore. Oh. So like I say, I had a certain amount of cynicism, where most of what I was seeing was condemnation based on a past association with Shadman, an online artist known basically exclusively for the production of illustrated. I found it both cathartic as someone who always found the culture around him grotesque, but also quite hypocritical given how many of people's online faves also had those associations. And again, doesn't help when you watch a video about the situation and the person keeps bringing up grooming in the same breath as being bisexual.
This is my statement to him.
The truth is that this aspect of it was just the especially sensational tip of the iceberg, with the revelation of chat logs between Ava and a MrBeast fan she knew to be underage that crossed the line of acceptable conversation with a minor.
There are mentions of Shadman and hentai, as well as NSFW content being shared and posted where minors could see it. Ava allegedly had one of the minor mods set up a bot to spam NSFW content.
You can still argue there was a certain amount of special pleading in this case. Even up to just a few years ago, there has been an extreme lack of care in ensuring minors online weren't taking part in communities that were inappropriate for them. I can't really remember a single time as a 12 or 13-year-old that I felt like anyone online had been attempting to shield me from anything. Maybe Newgrounds did traumatize me a bit, who knows? But we're not talking about 2008, we're talking about 2019. And however you frame it, there were chat logs revealed that were really very, very bad.
This was also over 6 years ago, and the landscape of what you could talk about on the internet and joke about was different, but I don't think it really ever involved talking to minors like this.
You can split hairs, you can say calling people dad was just a common meme at the time, you can say a lot of this could be brushed off as edgy jokes and not actual grooming attempts. For legal reasons, I really can't say more than that this was all extremely suspect. And I probably would give Ava more slack if she was also in her teens when these conversations happened, but Ava's pretty much the same age I am, and I couldn't imagine saying shit like this in my mid-20s. It's good that as an adult, LavaGS himself, the proposed victim of these messages, doesn't feel that their relationship with Ava crossed over into outright predatory behavior. It's pretty awful that the guy who ended up exposing these messages, a Project Veritas fan...
What, have you ever heard of James O'Keefe and Project Veritas?
I mean, yeah, James O'Keefe is not like the person you should necessarily look as an avatar of success with this stuff.
Only did so by leaking messages between him and the person he thought was victimized during a fake job interview.
He did think that we were having him edit for us, and that, you know, that's why he was telling us all this. Like
wait a second, so you tricked him into a conversation?
So you fucking baited them.
Like I say, Project Veritas fan, and I did kind of feel like talking about MrBeast and Project Veritas in the same video was my cosmic fate. And the people who jumped immediately from concern about predators and grooming to sending LavaGS abuse or outright victim blaming him because he didn't have the correct feelings about it, I think it's pretty transparent that their actual motivations had nothing to do with concern about victims.
And by looking, just by scrolling, in the top replies on Twitter is just transphobia. Jesus Christ. It's just every single reply.
None of that changes the nature of the messages themselves, and that's why MrBeast ultimately did the right thing by making a statement. Over the last few days, I've become aware of the serious allegations of Ava Tyson's behavior online, and I am disgusted and opposed to such unacceptable acts.
During that time, I've been focused on hiring an independent third party to conduct a thorough investigation to ensure I have all the facts. That said, I've seen enough online and taken immediate action to remove Ava from the company, my channel, and any association with MrBeast. I do not condone or support any of the inappropriate actions.
So the thing is, Jimmy, you were also in those chat logs. Also, you'd already knowingly hired a registered sex offender. Also, there are more sexual assault allegations. This is the part where things sort of lost control. Now, to be fair, I'm narrativizing a bit here. As I say, there were always occasional MrBeast criticisms and accusations that were already building up over time, especially with the production of MrBeast games. Popular voices like Rosanna Panzino had been amplifying these issues for over a year, despite constant attacks for doing so. But whatever your thoughts are about it, the Ava Tyson allegations and resultant outrage effectively generated the bat signal for disgruntled MrBeast ex-employees. A lot of things came out in the following weeks. I will try to keep this straightforward. It turns out the Mr. Beast company is terrible.
The first manager that ever worked there, his name was Dan. He was actually a really good guy, but everyone was consistently making these jokes wildly inappropriate about his like 5-year-old kid. Like, gonna go home and insert name, like what? The craziest thing.
Of those ex-employees and associates that emerged following the Ava Tyson allegations, one notable voice included Jake the Viking, who had left Mr. Beast in 2020, stating at the time there was no bad blood between him and the channel. Jake the Viking said that Jake said Jimmy had long known about Ava's inappropriate behavior. This was, again, technically true. Here's Jimmy in those chat logs joining in on the inappropriate conversations. Here's another ex-employee confirming Jimmy joined in on that behavior offline as well.
Who was saying that? I know. Well, Ava, Jimmy. They would make these like crazy jokes, and one day we were filming the video playing Fortnite in the middle of the ocean, and one too many jokes got said, and bro flipped. And so then the next day, he was fired.
But then something else happened. It turned out Jake the Viking's brother-in-law, who was also a Mr. Beast employee, was also a registered sex offender. Here's the truth. Yes, Delaware is my brother-in-law. Yes, he is a registered sex offender. When he was 21, a 16-year-old girl accused him of others of SA when she was 11. Delaware took a plea deal. That's why there was no jail time, but he still had to register. I understand why anyone would be upset and frustrated over these allegations, and I do not blame them. Hurting kids in any way is completely unacceptable. But in the case of Delaware, I firmly believe he did nothing wrong and look forward to the day these charges are dropped.
Delaware came in a week later, and it's so funny how this same environment that we're around kids all the time, that's his fan base. And then he brings in Delaware. There's this fostered environment with Lolly that they all think is so funny. And it's like the combination that doesn't sit very well when you add all three of those things up. So yeah, it was just nuts.
One of Mr. Beast's most popular early videos was a 24-hour fidget spinner live stream. He used to review the intros to kids' YouTube channels.
Wait a minute, I think that's the real Mr. Beast. I'm going to make that my new Twitter avatar, which you should go follow, unless you have a small penis.
Mr. Beast attracts a lot of extremely young fans, and that is very much by design.
The average demographic is what, 13 through 17? Is that the biggest spike in your analytics?
Well, I mean, mine's horseshit. It says like 18 to 24, but I know all my fucking viewers are little kids.
The branding, style, and products of Mr. Beast cater heavily to a child audience, and Jimmy has frequently been seen at child-focused events. He has 3 Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Awards. The kids chose him. It should go without saying that with an audience like this, there should be a greater degree of scrutiny about who is employed and associated with the company. A predator could easily use the fact that they work with Mr. Beast as a way to influence children. This goes doubly so for anyone brought in for an on-screen role, which Mr. Beast understood. That's why when he gave this convicted child predator an on-screen role, he let him wear a funny mask and called him Zorro.
Whoever steps out, if Delaware steps out.
Whoops.
Delaware. Yes. I need.
Whoops. Also forgot to do that for a different video. Everybody makes mistakes. Jake also flew out a 17-year-old to meet him. Now, Jake clearly had his own motivations to go after Ava Tyson so specifically. The brazen hypocrisy of it should probably be expected, and it should already be pretty damning for Mr. Beast to feign concern about responsible behavior at the company while having apparent prior knowledge of a sexual predator working there. Actually had 2. Latoya Hill is an adult film producer who allegedly worked first as a producer for Mr. Beast before being quietly removed from the role following a sexual harassment claim, who was then rehired as COO of Mr. Beast in 2023. The claims themselves come again from ex-employees verified in Dogpack's videos, which are elaborated on with much more depth there. Basically, this is more of a commentary and analysis type of video, but I do know some people just want a dry list of facts about the situation. For that stuff, you really should go to him. I don't know why you'd wait for my permission. I make videos very slowly. Also, if Dogpack gets counter-exposed for being terrible, discard times where it seems like I'm complimenting him. Actually, on that note, Dogpack's third video included discussion of James Warren, a cousin of Jimmy's and another secret CEO of Mr. Beast. He brings up a rumored connection to a domestic violence case that didn't actually have anything to do with this James Warren.
I do not think that the case number that is associated with this picture right here, and I told Dawson this, and that's why he said this in the video. I do not think that this particular case is the same James Warren.
Other critics of Mr. Beast immediately pointed this out, and Dogpack quickly admitted to the mistake, but it's a pretty glaring one, especially packaged between much more well-verified information. I thought it was important to bring it up here because a lot of people have used it to dismiss everything stated in these videos. It does delegitimize his case and shouldn't be understated. At the same time, a lot of the reaction does kind of feel like the backlash to the backlash to the backlash to the backlash to MrBeast. I love surfing the web. Dogpack and MrBeast? What is this? Some kind of dog pound?
What I found out from other people is that when they did the internal investigation at MrBeast, they determined it was consensual. I've spoken to the victim, but the victim was trying to get hush money, and which I supported fully. But what MrBeast, I guess, wanted was for him to say it was consensual, and I have a recorded phone call with him where he's talking about that.
They are going to come to that. They're going to reach out to me and say they want me to say it was consensual.
There is also Arman. Arman Azadi is an infamous alleged Vegas predator and influencer friend of Jake Paul, who was also brought on to MrBeast's Amazon show in a role that involved, among other things, him sleeping in close proximity to female contestants. This is despite Azadi's substantial list of physical and sexual abuse charges, the details of which are in articles linked in the description, and I am absolutely not comfortable describing at length here. Remember when I mentioned the sexual harassment claims in the class action lawsuit? This may be connected. Accusations against Ava Tyson herself have now extended beyond the initial claims, with a former assistant describing how she felt coerced into a one-sided relationship with Ava due to the power dynamic between them at the company. Ava had heavily implied in messages that Jess would be able to take part in a MrBeast video after she'd asked about hiring opportunities. Jess repeatedly expressed feelings of being pressured into a sexual relationship, given that relationship potentially determined if Jess took part in games that could earn her tens of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars, a mansion, a car, a chocolate factory. Ava later told Jess that she'd never had the ability to decide who takes part in videos. Evidently, it's unlikely it would have been a fair game either way. After that, her relationship with Jess continued in an uncomfortable balance between consented relationship and career necessity. Now, I don't personally think Jess should have gotten an in on a MrBeast video based on this relationship. I think that would have demonstrated even more unethical practices from the company, but it definitely shouldn't have been suggested to her, especially as the preamble to an actual relationship. I've noticed this accusation has gotten a lot less discussion from the type of people who are otherwise laser focused on the Ava Tyson part of the situation. The impression I get is that many of them are uncomfortable with the idea that it's exploitative to take advantage of a woman who clearly feels pressured into sexual favors for financial security. That, or just not liking the idea of caring about this when it's a transgender victim instead. Sunny V2 predicted this. Even just within the realm of sexual crimes and allegations, this is not an exhaustive list of everything connected to MrBeast. But I'm also maybe a quarter of the way through the general wrongs this company and its operators have now been accused of. You may be left with the same resounding question as me. How the fuck was this allowed to happen? I see dead people. Why did MrBeast hold so much influence with so little public desire for accountability? That one's not an open-ended essay type of question, by the way. The answer to both is money.
They tricked them for the money they just won.
The MrBeast brand is built on throwing around huge sums of money, and huge sums of money mean a lot to people, because they almost always translate to years of their labor. Yes, you can say nobody needs $500,000, but that's also more money than some people will make in their entire lives, which is quite enticing. I would like $1 million to take my mum on holiday. If anyone would like to send me $1 million, tipping is available via Patreon or Ko-fi. Jimmy, I've had a terrible year for sponsors and will private this video for 10k. These aren't video game tokens, they're not points, they translate directly to security and opportunity and physical and mental strain. This, paradoxically, makes people willing to accept unacceptable treatment if the sum of money is large enough. Even if the money comes from dubious sources, even if the game was rigged from the start, it still holds some degree of control, because when it comes to the guy with the money, why not try to stay on his good side? So people treated them well, treated them with less scrutiny, because it potentially benefited them. They might get a golden ticket out of it.
A lot of people don't come forward about stuff, you know, wherever they work, because they're worried that if they do, their career is going to be over, or their friends are going to lose their jobs, or you know, maybe if I'm nice publicly, I'll have a chance to, you know, come back and do another thing for money, whether that's work or a game, you know, whatever. You know, and that's kind of a weird system to have.
Even from a more charitable perspective, why spoil a good thing? Mr. Beast was a comfort to people merely by his existence. He was unavoidably a good capitalist, someone to look up to, and his brand helped justify the exact system he was taking advantage of. A straightforwardly good-natured person making a significant fortune with their own creative enterprise, not a factory owner or a Wall Street guy or some other stereotype of generic capitalist evil. He was just a silly little YouTuber helping people because he loves giving away money and making the world a better place.
We haven't got profit in the last like 5 videos. You need to stop.
But I like not pulling profit on my videos. No.
I need to make money. Please stop.
Take that, the media. You think Squid Game is some biting social commentary? Well, he just did it. Without the bad stuff. And his videos even function as little microcosms of meritocracy. See? If you just try hard enough, anyone can do it. There's a specific image I can't get out of my head. So I already mentioned Rosanna Panzino, a major voice online who has gotten a lot of pushback for continued criticism of Mr. Beast. She had actually been a contestant on one of his celebrity hide-and-seek challenges before having her performance significantly edited before the final release. Watching the video, you'd think the contest culminated in a dead heat for the $1 million prize between Logan Paul and TikTok magician Zach King.
And we literally found him 1 minute before Zach.
Paul had actually been caught already hours earlier, and it was decided Rosanna, along with Minecraft YouTuber Quackity, would be essentially written out either for the sake of Paul's ego or just to give him more screen time. The winner would then be announced as Zach, conveniently situated in the ceiling rafters that had been explicitly banned as a hiding spot. Rosanna, meanwhile, had put herself in a box.
I contorted this little 4'10" body into the smallest space, and I was in there for hours. And they didn't even open the door because they were like, a person can't even fit in there.
A cabinet barely big enough to fit her 4'10" body. And there she squatted, contorted in the dark, silently waiting for hours as Jimmy and his team circled around her and failed to figure out where she was.
So they went in there and they opened all the cabinets, and my heart was like, oh, they're going to find me. They're going to find me. And then I could hear them saying, like, she's not here. I don't know what you're talking about. Like, she's not here. But I was. They just missed it.
I picture her holding her breath in the dark, heart pounding, already imagining what she might do with that $1 million win.
It was to give away to your community. Mm-hmm. And that amount of money, people are like, why do you care? It's just a game. I care because $1 million to give to my community is life-changing. Mm-hmm. I could change people's lives.
I imagine Jimmy feverishly searching around Rosanna with a team of assistants behind him. They're both playing hide and seek, but they're playing different games. Rosanna needs to hide because she thinks she's competing for a prize. Jimmy needs to find her because he's already decided she isn't getting it. In fact, only at this point is Jimmy forced to actually play hide and seek. Stripped of the ability to construct his own reality, he's playing with people who actually have the clout to call him out on blatant deception. And he keeps looking because he already knows how things have to go. So in this little pocket reality, a make-believe children's game with a known outcome, Mr. Beast might be forced for a second to imagine he may actually lose this kid's game and $1 million with it. So they tell Rosanna she has to go hide somewhere else and immediately catch her when she does. Meritocracy.
It's all up to Jimmy. If Jimmy wants to have a fair game, and enforce the rules, he's going to do it. And if Jimmy doesn't want to, then he's not going to, and he didn't, you know.
Jake Weddle took a substantial role in the second of Dogpack's call-out videos. Weddle, as well as being another long-time employee of Mr. Beast, occasionally took part as a contestant of Jimmy's games. One of these videos went so wrong it was never published, a failed 100-day solitary confinement challenge that Weddle did not enjoy. Jake had no access to sunlight, no way of measuring time, lights were kept on 24/7 to ensure no time-lapse shots were affected. The ill-conceived inclusion of a filterless hot tub and an ice cream machine led to a basically constant stench of mold and the incredibly loud sounds of an ice cream machine.
The ice cream machine, let's talk about that for a second. An ice cream machine has 2 modes, on, and off, reeking of smelly dairy, mildew.
Sleep deprived and in constant discomfort, he was then told to run a marathon on a treadmill with 0 prep as a bonus challenge, suffering intense physical pain that continued after recording ended.
There was so much pressure to just do it, just do the thing, you know? So I wanted to be a good sport, and I wanted to get the boost, and I wanted the cash, and so I started running at 12, and I'm running until 3 a.m. When I got off the treadmill, the blisters I had on my feet were like, you wouldn't believe, just all over, just these big red. I couldn't walk. My muscles were like just. And that's when I was like, I'm done. I can't. I'm done. I'm done. I'm out. I'm out. I'm out. I'm out. I'm out.
In these conditions, Jake continued to perform for the camera to ensure the footage remained usable, even occasionally performing staged lines fed to him by Jimmy, like mentioning how grateful he is to pay back his student loans. All of this to protect his paycheck. A paycheck he wouldn't ultimately receive until MrBeast was called out about it. His experience ended up being a kind of trial run for a later attempt that would actually see the light of day, unlike Jake Weddle. I think you'd find that funny. Everything said here about these feelings of pressure within these contests and the lasting damage, both physical and mental, following it, actually runs pretty in line with another challenge I discussed at length in the Squid Game video. In that case, the contestant Alex spent over a month trapped mostly alone in a grocery store, an act that clearly wore away at him despite his eventual payout. I felt pretty bad for him, and then it turned out he was like a landlord podcaster, and I'm just really disillusioned today. Stories like this of unfair or cruel conditions have only stacked up over the last few months, culminating in the upcoming Amazon Beast Games lawsuit. Based on the conditions some MrBeast contestants have complained of over the years, it's been argued that MrBeast may have violated the Geneva Conventions. The Geneva Conventions, in case you're not aware, being the treaties that set out basic standards for humane treatment in war. The main argument people have made against this has been a pretty key distinction that at all times the contestants' involvement was clearly within their own control. Many channels and critics have been completely unsympathetic to stories like Jake.
Jake Weddle is a manipulative, unhinged crybaby and shouldn't be taken seriously.
People have jumped on times Weddle became emotional during his interview with Dogpack. Now, in this particular segment, Weddle isn't really talking about something that happened to him, but to an older co-worker who Jake discovered was getting paid significantly less for similar work. Feeling bad, especially knowing the guy had kids, Jake encouraged him to ask for a salary increase. In response, both him and Jake were removed from the company.
And they said, bet, and they gave me a severance check the next day. And they gave him a severance check the next day. And if I knew he was going to lose his job too, I wouldn't have done it. Me, I was over the moon. I was like, you're going to give me a check and I get to leave? I was over the moon. And he was devastated. And I really regret that.
I think feeling residual guilt for accidentally getting a dad fired from his job is a pretty normal reaction. Men being open about their emotions in a non-destructive way, pretty based, actually. But this is the main sticking point with Weddle's whole story. He accepted the terms of the game. He accepted unpleasant conditions. He took MrBeast's money.
I don't want Jimmy's money, but I need to eat food.
I don't think MrBeast is responsible for your poor financial status. You have to either choose, take the 50K and have a hit to your credibility, or deny all the money and keep your credibility.
He can complain about PTSD or insomnia or whatever. He chose to take the job. And a lot of people don't like their jobs.
I don't care about money. I think everybody should just be able to eat food and have a house and get medical care. I hate money so much. Oh, it's ran my life. I hate it.
But he keeps talking about it every chance he gets.
You're going to get $300,000 because it's $10,000 a day. I said, excuse me? I'll dance for you if you put that kind of money in my face, sure.
Was when you have no money.
It's not a choice, is it? So.
Yeah, that's a person that absolutely doesn't care about money, isn't it? I mean, at the end of the day, we all want the money, and whoever says that they don't, they're just full of shit.
That's a really good point, man. Frankly, I think a lot of these guys wrote Jake Weddle off when they saw he was doing the mustache mullet thing. Mustache mullet men, you have my respect. From a distance. Now, it's worth pointing out something Dogpack clarified at the end of the interview, that leaked MrBeast employee documents indicate staff are outright trained to push against being told no. Even in cases where someone might choose to advocate for themselves, there's no reason to assume it automatically ended at that. Yes, the MrBeast training document does have "no does not mean no" bolded and in all caps. Similar dismissive attacks do seem to pop up whenever someone emerges from the MrBeast torment nexus and then decides to complain about it. Rather than being something specific to MrBeast, I do think to some extent this is just based on the conflicting feelings people often have when someone comes and complains to them about their job or work. On the one hand, you want to empathize with another human being, acknowledge their distress, ideally help them find a way out of it. On the other hand, oh okay man, you also have difficulties in life? Go fuck yourself.
This guy's whole personality is that of being a victim. You're making 10K a day in a challenge. Millions of people would kill to be in your shoes, and you don't seem to recognize that.
My car broke down. My dog died. My dog car broke down and died. Everyone has problems. You signed the contract. Sorry you had to smell some bad smells and had some bad night's sleep. You put crabs in a bucket. They all try to climb out at once and end up dragging each other down instead. Now what happens when you tell the crabs it's a first one out of the bucket challenge where they'll get $1 million, and if you get stuck at the bottom of the bucket and complain about it, you're not allowed in my YouTube videos anymore. I don't think anything would happen because money and YouTube don't mean anything to a crab.
This is unlimited money, and the next person to buy a Fusel's bar at my local Walmart, we're gonna kidnap and give this money to.
From the deceptive marketing to the corrupt management of the company itself, understanding this problem relies on an idea of coercion, which is hard for some people to grasp, but defines the entire rise of the MrBeast beast. Like on a basic level, we should recognize that children have less agency in their decision making. We establish a lot of laws on the idea that children can be easily influenced and controlled. So we should also recognize that when MrBeast constantly throws out on his live stream that the next order gets a Switch, the next order gets $1,000, the next order gets a free $1,000, or to get to be in a MrBeast video where they could potentially win an even bigger prize, knowing the vast majority of that audience are children, that's coercive. He's waving the threat of missing out on something that, to a child who doesn't understand odds or manipulative marketing to begin with, sounds like it'd be stupid not to act on. Letting kids take a spin on a virtual slot machine every time they buy a MrBeast bar, transparently just a way to take a sugar addiction and hook a gambling addiction onto it. Now within that, there is clearly nuance. You probably shouldn't let your 8-year-old have total control of the finances. If a kid has the ability to recklessly spend on candy bars and YouTube giveaways, that's the problem, not our precious Jimmy. And if no law has yet decided it's wrong, then who are we to judge? Control is a concept situations like this make me think about a lot. If someone is directly physically threatened or drugged, it's easy to say that they've had control taken from them. If they're a child, same limited control. But outside of that, how do we evaluate when a person is in full control of their decisions? If someone else can control you, then what are you? What are you if you cannot control yourself? These are the kinds of deep personal questions that bring us all to advertising and marketing, the industry I was instructed to pursue before I decided to become a YouTuber, which, funnily enough, is mostly advertising and marketing. I think it's tragic and also very funny that MrBeast set out to win YouTube by being essentially the algorithmically perfect YouTuber. And it turns out that's just a marketing guy.
Essentially, by studying the algorithm, you'll learn that you're more studying human psychology. Literally, that's it. If people are clicking and watching, then it gets promoted more. And that's literally all the algorithm does, is reflect what the people want to a T. And if you deny that, you just make terrible videos and are trying to find a scapegoat.
That's what Jimmy is. And marketing is, not to be too cynical about it, often about stretching the realm of plausible deniability just enough to avoid legal consequences. MrBeast gets a lot of plausible deniability. His titles and thumbnails suggest something completely outlandish, but then the content is just close enough that you don't feel like you can honestly say you were tricked. Marketing or advertising, I forget the difference. I didn't go into the industry. What we've essentially decided is an outright lie is taking some control, but anything that could exist in a grey area remains up for debate, which I guess is what grey area means. Did you notice how quickly people flipped from, and all the games are real, to, yeah, it's staged, it's entertainment, as soon as it became impossible to deny that a lot of it was staged?
You know, because what we do is not scripted, so you have to plan for a bunch of variables that you can't control, blah, blah. If what we did was scripted, holy shit, this stuff would be easy to pump out.
I'm sure the relative health benefits of Feastables and the Prime Combo Box will be heavily disputed for years to come. I'm sure that MrBeast will hire a somewhat competent legal team and will get many lengthy discussions of what constitutes humane treatment of a contestant and employee. I have a sneaking suspicion that even if MrBeast is found liable in a court of law, there will still be people continuing to make excuses. These justifications may not last forever, but they will hold out for as long as possible to maintain Jimmy's plausible deniability. Control extends not just to direct financial control, but to control of narratives. I already brought this up. It's the reason I'm often cynical about any conversation around cancellation online. It's like plausible deniability or nuance suddenly appear, but only when people like the guy in the first place. This was MrBeast's superpower. To the claim that he's influenced children towards bad diets or illegal gambling, there is always that layer of wiggle room. MrBeast doesn't control what children consume. Why are the parents shifting that blame? Of course, marketing is inherently manipulative. It's an attempt to manipulate you into buying something. Does the sale of golden tickets or other giveaways through MrBeast products encourage repeat purchases for children? Maybe. Is it callous to massively overinflate kids' chances of winning special prizes to generate hype? I would say so. Jimmy Donaldson is clearly very much aware of how easily consumers can be manipulated. But maybe Willie Mac Show is right. There's nothing wrong with producing a product people like and making money off it. The kind of statement that on face value seems like a blanket justification for a lot of incredibly harmful and manipulative business practices. It's not even functionally an argument, it's just a moral claim about a behavior being okay. But on a deeper level, this claim has always been Jimmy's greatest shield, the ultimate narrative. Personal responsibility. That's increasingly what I'm seeing come up in the backlash to MrBeast. Just an endless debate on what counts as personal responsibility, when financial need is a valid excuse for knowingly engaging in harmful or irresponsible behavior, when it's time for parents to stop blaming the YouTube man because they keep buying their kids MrBeast chocolate and signature t-shirts. It just comes back to the same question I talked about earlier. How much control did MrBeast ever really have? Your answer to that question will also determine your answer as to why and how this all happened. And I guess as this is my video, I will do my version of it. Sorry, my throat hurts. I've been talking for a very long time now. I think there was always going to be a MrBeast, regardless of if it was Jimmy Donaldson. I think specific parameters were set as far as what a viral YouTube channel should be, the limits of what they can be and how they can present themselves, and MrBeast formed miraculously around that. Of course he was going to attract an audience with the universal hook, massive piles of money. Of course he would maintain a spirit of competition to convince people it was earned. Of course he would then pivot to charity as an easy way to launder a positive reputation. And of course, after demonstrating time and again that he knows how to play the system, accountability would skip over him completely. You could instead take away that there was something uniquely flawed in the character of MrBeast. That it was almost a fluke for someone who seems so ruthless and openly deceptive to end up in this position, able to disguise the activities of himself and his associates so comfortably. You would then have to ignore the fact that this kind of corruption, especially at higher levels of influence, is really not that uncommon in the slightest. And I think you'd miss out on so many other considerations from this whole series of events. How skewed could our idealized perception of the highly successful successful and charitable really be? How misguided could our sense that these are the people we should rely on be? How much can we trust a system that lets people take advantage like this almost completely unimpeded? How much can we trust other people care enough to seek justice? There's a classic internet proverb: if it's easy to look into, nobody does. Or it was something like that. I haven't looked into it. I absolutely fell into this when I was making my other videos. I wreck myself with hindsight and the way I just didn't treat MrBeast with as much skepticism as I otherwise would have. My motivation wasn't even about losing money. It really was more about vibes. I specifically didn't want to come off like some defensive leftist who needs to make random jabs at MrBeast, who seemed well-meaning in his pursuits. That, on top of the fact that he wasn't the main focus of those videos, was really enough for me to never look beyond the assumption that such a famous, popular channel would never escape so much scrutiny. I really do hope that, at least in part, this video makes up for that. I explained a plot point in my Dune video relating to a character who built himself up to be almost a god, worshipped all across the universe, and the revelation that he did all this to teach humanity a grand lesson. To be so despised from such a position of power that humanity learns to resent that power, to break it apart, and to learn never to trust such a man again. Is that secretly what motivated Jimmy? Was it that his ambitions went beyond the mundane good, ensuring his work was ethical, that his treatment of staff and the general public was fair, that he wasn't manipulating or directly endangering children? Small potatoes. But instead, to exploit all of those things, to take advantage of that legal and ethical grey zone, to raise his status in a way that was only made possible by this exploitation. And then, in the end, to teach all of these fans and kids the most important lesson of them all: to question and to doubt, even and especially, the idols they most hold dear. Do I think that this was his dream? No. I think what MrBeast wanted was vast amounts of power and money. MrBeast's motives were straightforward, his actions were predictable. So many people saw this all coming, but remained effectively powerless to do anything about it. But just because there was no lesson intended in Jimmy's behavior doesn't mean that there aren't lessons to draw. Never has the importance of critical thinking and questioning charismatic individuals been more apparent. Never has it been more clear that our economic system is a parody of itself, built to serve the whims of indifferent con men exploiting plausible deniability and legal wiggle room. And remember that there is something else out there that also enjoys exploiting wiggle room. Worms. So I'm filming this after editing most of this video because it's a very long video with a lot of yapping, and I feel like there's a few things really worth emphasizing. So you get more yapping as a reward. I didn't put the green screen up this time. Yeah, there was a washing machine behind the green screen this whole time. I understand if people find the concept of a video like this repetitive, especially from a channel like mine. This whole thing about how bad things are done, but actually it's less about bad, powerful individuals and more about a system that benefits from helping those individuals. I've said these things a lot. They're always true, but I've said them a lot. As long as the conclusion is boiled down to MrBeast being bad and nothing else, this will happen again. Even Jimmy will most likely find ways to push blame for his own actions onto others, as we've already seen. People like a narrative they can tie a neat bow on. Parents, even well-meaning ones, let their children idolize Jimmy because he seemed like a very simple, wholesome, charitable role model. By the same coin, I am aware that a significant number of people clicked on this video exclusively because they wanted a Jimmy Donaldson dunk fest. And I hope I've given you that a little bit, but I hope we can also inspire a little more critical thought into what this particular outrage really means. Again, a lot of people have come away quite skeptical of the harm that was done to a lot of people criticizing this company. A lot of that comes from their own feelings of dissatisfaction with their own work or personal life. Many, even the majority of people, find a lot of things painful and demoralizing about their work, but they don't get $100,000 at the end of it to wipe the tears away. What that actually means is the kind of manipulation and exploitation we're talking about with MrBeast is really just a very sensational microcosm of what a lot of people feel all the time. Plenty of companies have subjected workers and the general public to worse things over a longer period of time. And I respect that a lot of you didn't come here to talk about every wrong in society. You came for the wrongs of MrBeast. But I'd urge you to consider if the two are less separable than you might think. That the DNA of MrBeast is woven into not just YouTube and not just the internet, but the entire free market ideology that is the basis both of his persona and of our society. Of course, an unscrupulous businessman would succeed in this game. Meanwhile, I got exactly one sponsor offer for this video, and it was MyHeritage, which I didn't take because I didn't want to be complicit in a genocide or the distribution of private data to Israeli authorities. So this video is unsponsored. If you liked it, consider backing me on Patreon to be part of the credits that are scrolling by. I also accept tips via Ko-fi, or you can buy me a game on my Steam wishlist. Leave any comments you might want me to address in a follow-up video. Thank you, love you, goodbye. Also, this says Mr. Prop. I didn't realize that it would be off-screen the entire video, so there you go.
I'll bet somewhere he has a 666 tattoo.
MrBeast does everything